Hello, hello, and welcome to my next guest speaker, who is the amazing Tara Love Perry, who is the founder of the I Love You Me method. Sorry, I Love You Me method, yes.
Mhm.
And she has been a coach for like over 20 years. She has a massive following. She's absolutely gorgeous. And we were introduced from a mutual friend of ours who got us together to have a conversation about 8 months ago around what happened to me in the pandemic in terms of releasing trauma and shame over childhood sexual abuse. And we had the most amazing conversation. And I wanted to bring Tara here back again so that we could maybe continue this conversation or recap on this conversation and kind of see where we're both at now in order to help you as my clients with your journey to find your inner goddess. So without further ado, thank you so much, Tara, for being here. Lovely to have you.
It's my total pleasure and honor, Claudia. I absolutely love you and fully support your work. You're amazing. It's brilliant to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for being here. So, yeah, 8 months ago, our lovely, gorgeous friend, I think Ruby Brown, got us together and she introduced us, and we had the most amazing conversation, which at the time, I think I was still in shock that that the shame had been released in me. And maybe I just tell my clients who don't really know this a bit about that first. So during the pandemic, what came up for me was this massive relief of shame around my childhood sexual abuse. And I decided to go public. And I went to my school Facebook group and I told everyone and said, who else? Me Too. Started basically a Me Too movement with my school. Lots and lots of women came forward, and we're now in a very in a big case that's going up to the CPS around childhood sexual abuse in our school here in London 35 years ago. So that was kind of the relief for me. That's what happened. It was a big rush that rushed through my body energetically and released out my body. And I hope that any of you that are watching that you might have, or if you need to have, I hope that at some point you may release this shame from your own body if that's something you're holding on to. And you might find this video, I hope this interview, this conversation helpful in some way. So yes, so Tara, when we were talking, what was it about the conversation that we had that kind of resonated with you, that you wanted to talk to me in the first place?
You know, the first thing, Claudia, is because it really, really touched my heart, your courage. I just loved you for that. Just, you know, yeah, honestly, right now, even it's like, I just got a lot of love and respect for you from doing that, because I know how hard it is, because it's so vulnerable, it's so excruciating. And the level of shame and guilt and blame and self-analysis and self-torture that we go through. And it's like we've been in this purgatory space for a long, long time on our own, hiding, pretending, covering, masking, adapting, flexing, changing, you know, trying to be lovable, trying to somehow manage or deal with this trauma. And usually the reason that trauma stays inside is because we've kept it to ourselves. And in doing that, we're kind of imprisoning ourselves, but we don't even realize, right? Shame can be our prison. And so for you to just come out and break through all of those, whatever limitations or fears or beliefs you had been carrying about yourself. And for me, that's a real act of self-love. That says my heart and my well-being, and I'm more important than my fear, than my pain, than my shame. My well-being, my truth, my light, my love is more important and is stronger. And you just really stop getting in the way and let it out. And you did that. And I was just wanted to cheerlead you and support you, and just for everyone to hear what you were doing, because when you share, like you did, when you share with a group of people, and yours was public, so that's, you know, not everybody can do that, Claudia. And I think that's why you hold such a beautiful container for women, because just being in a held, safe space where you're validated, seen, witnessed, you know, and you can share that vulnerability in a safe, quiet way that's not excruciating in public. You know, you don't have to, you know, have, you know, I was thinking balls of steel, but us women, we have our balls here, right there, right on our chest. So like, I don't know, but like, you know, you hold that container for women so that they can come in and share in a space, because sharing to others, being seen, being witnessed, being heard, being validated, and being just loved in that space is really, really an important and crucial part of our healing, I believe. And that too is an act of self-love, is not doing it alone, but saying, I need others, right? I need family, I need community, I need my sisters, I need support, and I'm going to let myself have that. To me, that's where the healing really begins, when you just make that decision and just decide to come out with it. And I just love that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Thank you for your words, and thank you for that. I was just thinking about like why we don't do it and why I didn't do it earlier. I think that's something we talked about before, but maybe to reiterate it now from what you just said, you know, I didn't do it earlier because I was still sitting in what I call a shit show of shame. And you think about the repercussions on the family. So you think about your family and how they would take it. So I thought about my mom and my dad and my brother and my, you know, and then I thought about my husband now and my kids and how it would impact on them. And then I was like, I got to a point where I was like, well, okay, so if I continue to hold it in my body, what's going to happen to this shame? And I've been watching a lot of Gabor Mate and sort of, you know, a lot of Gabor Mate, and and it kind of really sunk into me, really kind of came into me that, oh my God, if I don't release this shame, what's going to happen to it? And it's just going to sit in my body. It's going to sit in my body, and it's going to become dis-ease. It's going to become something that's something like, it's going to manifest itself physically.
Absolutely.
And what I've realized since I created this program, the Find Your Inner Goddess program, and the cycle, is that when the trauma and shame releases, it comes up through the chakras, and then it gets to the throat, and then you don't speak, and then it goes back down again. So women constantly are going through this trauma and shame, up and down, up and down, up and down, and causing this dis-ease in the body. And I've just finished reading actually Gabor Mate's new book about the myth of normal, and it states in it that the biggest problem for women is autoimmune disease, right? So, and they get autoimmune disease. Most of the women he's looked after get autoimmune disease caused by childhood sexual abuse.
Yeah.
I mean, this was just like the last couple of days I've been reading his book, and this came up, and I was like, whoa, okay, there's the validation around, you know, this whole thing. And I think during the pandemic, I think, well, I had a different trigger, didn't I? So my trigger actually was when they said that they were going to vaccinate 12-year-old children without the consent of parents. That's what actually triggered me. And I didn't really care that everyone knew. I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't care if everyone knows. This has to come out. I have to be able to protect my own children, and I have to be able to protect future children and my daughter, her friends, And actually, as it turns out, for whatever reason, I didn't realize that I would literally be protecting my daughter and her friends, because it's a long story, but basically the situation I'm in does have an effect on the next generation, and there's lots of context to that, which I won't go into now. But I just had this download. My third eye was open. I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to release this shame. But I know it's not easy for a lot of women to do that. It's really not a lot. Women worry about their families, how they're going to take it. So when you say, yeah, you know, it's really brave to tell it out in public, I don't know whether it was brave or at the time, I didn't really think about it. I told my husband afterwards, 5 minutes later, I said, oh my God, do you know what I've just done? And he was like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? And I said, well, if I'd have told you, I don't know why I didn't tell you. I just did it. It just came. It was like a voice in my head told me to do it, and I did it, and it's done. And he was like, okay, but maybe you should tell me. I said, well, okay, and we were fine. He was fine, but I was like, I don't know where it came from. It was just like this download. I just felt really in tune with everything around me, and I just had to get it out.
Yeah.
And I think it's the best thing I've ever done for myself the whole of my life. For the whole of my life. So this isn't really an interview about me. This is a discussion for both two-way, but you know,
It's valid though. It's important. And I actually said courage, which I feel like means something else, because it's that fire. It's that truth must come out. I must follow my path. I must live my truth. And that's when your truth got bigger than your fear or your shame, which is amazing. And
no,
I
absolutely.
totally agree with you. What you said about autoimmune disease as well, if at some point we can come back to that, as that is so relevant, and I can totally speak from that experience as well.
Oh, well, let's talk about it now then. Let's talk about it now. What I mean, that's something that I've been listening to and hearing, and then I started to feel it.
Yeah.
Not about myself, but witness it in other women, like my clients who were coming to me with autoimmune diseases. And then I would talk through, because the first session we go through everything about them, talk about the childhood experiences. And there was always abuse.
Yeah.
Always abuse. And then I started hearing it from Gabor Mate, and then et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm like, okay, he's written a book about it.
Yeah.
So what is it that you feel about that? What do you think? Do you notice it in your clients? Have you seen the correlation between it?
I've done both. Like, I've been watching this for years, because I don't know if you know this about me and your viewers, but before I created the I Love You Me method and started healing, I didn't want to be a healer. I was not interested, right? But I was super psychic, and I didn't even realize how psychic. And this is also this is part of the whole empath narcissism abuse story as well, because I'll go back to this, but basically I was super psychic. So I was doing these things that I call soul reading, which means I can literally see a person's soul, all the memories of everything that's ever happened, ever. I can tap into like a multi-dimensional library, pull out the stories, read the whole thing, and help people make sense of that whole thing and get through and get clear of their conditioning, their patterns, their ancestral, their past, all that stuff, right? Birth trauma, conception trauma, because there's conception trauma, all kinds of stuff, right? So I'm doing that. And part of, and what I'm seeing is client after client that's coming to me with autoimmune deficiency issues, all of it, they're out of their body. The body weakens, there's no energy, because there's no spirit of life, i.e. our spirit, our immortal self, our little drop of great spirit of all things, right? Life is leaving the body, because when you have that moment of trauma, and particularly sexual trauma in the base chakra, it's like there's nowhere for the spirit to anchor into, it can't land. And then that trauma grows and ripples, and like you said, it moves up through the chakra system. It kind of affects your entire system, pushing your spirit out, because you're in your spirit. You're like, this spirit recognizes unconditional love, right? Spirit is unconditional love. Everybody in their spirit is a beautiful little unique flavor, a unique drop of spirit of unconditional love, right? That's what we do to manifest and incarnate into this physical form, right? But if the body is getting full up of pain and trauma and emotion and painful emotion and sensation and beliefs and all that kind of thing, and especially when you're in a culture of this and a family lineage of this, that's another thing, trauma getting passed along the family line. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it's recognized, it comes out, it can get released. But we've got stuff built up over many, many, many generations, right? And this is what I was seeing. So I'm seeing like the next person in the generation, like i.e. you, going, okay, this has happened to me. Why? Because it's happened to my previous generations. It's an inherited thing. Now I'm carrying the baton. I've got that vibration of abuse that was seeded into me in my conception. So I grow up this innocent child, and because I've got this resonance of abuse, it's going to attract it again. It's in the template, it's in your blueprint, right? And I know I'm going a bit fast over this, I don't want to get into it.
Mhm.
But essentially, that means that you're either going to pass your trauma on to your next generation, or you're going to resolve it, and you have this opportunity. But it means that your little spirit eventually, or really, does not anchor into the body. So without spirit in the body, it's like, what do autoimmune deficient people do? Not breathe very much, super shallow breathing. They're scared, they don't want to open to life, they don't want to let anything out. They become a shut, tight little bud where life can't get in. So inevitably, they're going to run out of energy and slowly start checking out, can't function mentally, can't function emotionally, can't function digestively, can't function sexually, can't function physically. And it all just, that life diminishes. And it's really intense. And I had that. I got ill at 14. And I was ill for 10, 11 years before I could start to heal myself at 24. And I was suicidal. I was suicidal at 14. I did not want to be here. And I don't remember any childhood sexual abuse. But I had recurring nightmares as a little girl. And I wasn't in my body. So not having my spirit in my body meant I was an open house. I was anybody's. I was anybody's for the taking. Anybody could come in, take my energy, put their energy into mine, because I was out of my body. And I was sexually preyed on by men as a child.
But you don't remember any particular circumstances?
I don't remember. I had to do a healing journey a few years ago, where I went deep into my subconscious and found the moment, and I saw the images, and I was really little. And it wasn't someone in my family, it was somebody that had been put in charge to look after me just for a short period of time.
I've just got shivers because I remember something like this when I was 2. And it's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but that explained, because I had all of these unjoined dots, but I've got that memory, that life experience, that it was all these things that never added up. And I'd be like, Mum, what happened? She's like, nothing. Dad, what happened? Nothing. I believe it. I believe my dad would never do that to me. But why did all these other things happen? Right? And I also know I've carried this for lifetimes. This is my own soul journey of the wounded feminine being raped, pillaged, burned, abused, the whole thing. And I also know some of my mum's sexual history. And it's like, you just become the basket case. You just become the bit where everyone says, I couldn't resolve my trauma. There wasn't the consciousness about at that time. There wasn't the tools. There wasn't the whatever. They didn't know how. And then it all gets put into this container here. And then it's like, your turn. You have a go, like passing the baton.
Do you think then that some of your memories could not actually be your own? Do you think they could be your mum's or your grandmother's, and that because you're so psychic?
This memory was definitely me. Definitely me. And I'm because when you do this thing a lot, you get to know. It's like my grandma passed over a long time ago, rest in peace, and she would show me her story in spirit. I would see my mum. So I was good at identifying whose was whose, but at the end of the day, it all becomes mine because I'm carrying it. It's in me. I feel it. I'm struggling to heal, resolve, and kind of liberate myself from it. So it's a responsibility to own. And when you don't know how, you don't know what to do with that. And this is where people go, it's all my fault. And it's not, it's a fault that you feel inside of you. Something's wrong, right? Something's not okay. There's a fault, like a fault line in the earth. Something not okay. It's dangerous here. It's not good. It's not safe. But because we feel that fault and we carry those fault lines of our ancestral lineage, does not mean that we did it, we deserve it, and it was all on us.
No, absolutely.
It really doesn't. But we're the ones that going, I feel the fault. Who else is taking responsibility? Oh, no one. Therefore, it must be mine, even though we're going, but I didn't do it, it's not my fault. That feeling is like, it must be mine. What else are we going to do? And that's where I feel like people, because I get asked this a lot, people that have been abused, they're like, but how is it that like attracts like, law of attraction, I've got to take responsibility, but it's not my fault? And how did I, as a victim, as an innocent, attract this perpetrator, this, you know, abuse to myself? Why did I choose that? I didn't want that. And it doesn't really work like that. You know, a lot of people get really upset about this. And it's like misinformation, you know, spiritual misguidance, if I can call it that. That's not how it is. Everything in this universe is based on vibration. It's not personal, right? Yes, you're innocent. Yes, you're innocent. It wasn't your fault what happened to you. You didn't do it, right? You were the soul that said, I've got a soul agreement with all these other characters, with the mum, with the father, with the situation, whatever, all of these the characters are on the stage of your personal scenario, your personal situation. You have a role to play for each other. Your soul says, I've, you know, carried all this lifetimes and lifetimes of stuff. I need to clear my stuff. Look at this. This is the perfect situation. Let me recreate the perfect situation that's going to trigger the shit out of me, so that I remember that I'm here to heal and resolve this, so that I'm free for it and I don't have to carry it into any more of my soul journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and it's like divine arrangement, and it doesn't look like that on the ground. It's hard to see that in the person that abused you, or people that did horrible things. You go, on a soul level, we really love each other, and we decided that he plays or she plays the good guy or the bad guy, and we play these roles so that we can all act our stuff out that we've all got carried from generation after generation, soul lifetime after soul lifetime, because it needs to heal. Because everything in this universe must come into harmony, must come into resolution. The universe, the creator source, seeks itself in everything. Right? So it's like it's constantly seeking harmony. And the way it does that is it's like shining a light, getting triggers on these issues that are not in harmony, so that they can be brought into consciousness and released with that love, released with that grace, released with forgiveness, released with, you know, faith, whatever words you want to put on that. And then we come into harmony. And as I come into harmony, you come into harmony, and it ripples, because we all want peace on earth. We all want harmony. That's our natural state. That's our default, right? So it's like the truth seeking itself, harmony seeking itself. So it's not that you did it or they did it or I did it. It's like we're all flipping well, deeply entrenched in a conditioning that goes back so long of ignorance, lack of consciousness, abuse, pain, torture, suffering, shame. It's deeply entrenched, and we're just like the latest layer, if you like, of the ancestral, you know, think of all the ancestors buried beneath us in the ground, and here we're standing on the nice green grass thinking it's all fine, and we've got layers and layers of that ancestral stuff. We're on the top of the pile, it's our turn, and it's like, okay, it manifests through me, but it's not me. It's not me. I'm holding that vibration. Like attracts like, equal and opposites attract as well. It's just physics. It's just how it is. It's just, you know, the duality of life. And yes, it's painful to say, okay, this is all in me. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. But if it's in me, I am my own responsibility.
Yeah.
I look after me. This is my me. You have your me. Your business is looking after your me. My business is looking after my me. But if we can do that together and team up, right? And when a group of people come together and team up, all saying, okay, I take responsibility, not for the actions that it was my fault, but the fact that it's in me, and I've chosen on a soul level to manifest this and to heal this for the evolution of my soul and for the evolution of humanity, for that peace. That's how I see it. So that was a bit of a long rant, but thank you.
No, I get. Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's really interesting to see it. You know, your perspective is very different to mine. I guess mine's much more basic. You know, very much more basic, and I totally was just listening it with intent to what you were saying, and I really resonate with the lineage situation. So I think the reason why I didn't want to share my story was not only for my family, but knowing that it was going to bring up lineage in my family. And I'm now currently in therapy with my mother.
Wow.
And I've been trying to push my mother to talk about her own childhood, knowing that that the cords need to be cut. And this is where I want it to end here, so that my daughter can move forward without this conditioning that's come. And I know where it's come from, and that's why I resonated with Gabor Mate quite a lot, because I'm from a Jewish background, and the war and all of those things that come from the background. And yeah, as I say, we're in therapy trying to look at that lineage at the moment, which is, you know, something that's come out of it, that not everybody can do that, but it's quite empowering to actually be in therapy with your 78-year-old mother. So I really do. It is something, you know.
Yeah.
And that's happened, that's developed since we last spoke. But what I also would love to know is, and maybe helpful for my clients is, maybe you could, if it's not too painful, that you could talk a little bit about where you've just been and where you're heading right now in terms of possibly you know, being in a narcissistic relationship, and how some women, I think, have found that they have chosen narcissistic relationships out of self-sabotage. And I would love to know your views around that, and maybe you can help some of my women with that piece, seeing as that's, you know, something that you've been through and understand.
Yeah,
Would that be okay?
absolutely. And actually, I feel really honored that you would ask me, because that's not something I've spoken about publicly yet. Yeah, I was in what I would label as a twin flame, and a toxic twin flame relationship that lasted on and off for about 11 years. And it was like I just realized before I got into this relationship, I'd had one of those awakening moments that many relationships that were significant in my life so far had been abusive. And I realized I'd had every different kind of relationship abuse, every category. I had ticked those boxes because of what I said about my childhood, right? And because we trauma bond. And I wasn't even aware of that phrase, trauma bonding, but I understood the quantum physics of it, like I just said, where like attracts like. So my trauma frequency will attract somebody else's like vibration trauma frequency. But I did recognize after many abusive relationships that it was like I would fall for the poor me story. I've just got all this overspilling compassion, like so much compassion, so soft, so empathic, that I almost had no edge, no container. I never felt held. I never felt safe and protected, right? It was like I was just spilling out all over the place. And I didn't know how to hold myself or protect myself at all. And I kind of didn't feel worthy of being protected and loved either, really. I never experienced love, nor I felt was love ever. But at least it was like in these relationships, I could feel loved, what I thought was love, but it was actually really painful. And I got confused about pain and love and what was the same. Anyway, so I go through this relationship on and off, like an elastic band that just kept pulling us back together. And it was like, okay, I can't do cord cutting. I've tried cord cutting on this one. I've tried every trick in the book to detach from this man that I know is toxic. He's severely wounded and damaged. He's had his own childhood abuse, and I won't go into that because that's private, but his trauma matched my trauma. We were a vibrational match. We trauma bonded. And I fell for his sob story and all of my compassion for him. And I was like, but if I just love and save him, he'll love and protect me. And then we kind of get what each other needs. And I thought that was partnership. I thought that was love. And where do we learn this? Where did I learn this? In my parents. Right? I grew up in a healing center. They healed each other all the time. It was all about healing. They never got healed, but still that was what it was about, right? So it was literally right in front of me. So I had this on and off relationship, the most painful thing ever experienced ever in my life. I couldn't avoid it. And I started to cotton on and go, hold on a minute, all those things that I can't stand about him, that I blame. He this, he that. Why is he such a blood? And I was like, in those periods where we were apart, I started to realize, hold on a minute, what he said, it was really harsh, but he was right. That thing that he said that was bad about me, it was like really, really harsh, but kind of true. And I was like, oh my goodness, what I think is true about him, actually, that's kind of true about me, but his is like the over obvious, and right out there and says it, you know, he'll say, yes, I'm selfish. I know that. Yes, I'm this and yes, I'm that. But for me, it was covert. I was like, no, I'm not selfish. I'm loving and giving. In fact, I would just do everything for everyone else and put myself last, you know, like that. And that was just my patterns, just to put myself last, even though I knew that wasn't the solution. It was still what I did. It was, I want to serve and please and heal this man, because then he will be the hero that will look after me. And it backfired big time, as you know, backfires. And the thing is, I kind of didn't care how bad he was to me, because I loved him so much. It was like this twin flame thing. It's like unconditional love, where he's like the other side of my coin, my masculine to my feminine. And I can't get away from my own other half of my coin. I can't get away from my shadow. And I'm his shadow. I'm his worst nightmare. And yet everything he wants and dreams for. And he's my worst nightmare and everything he wants and dreams for. So we're in this entanglement on and off for a long time. And eventually I kind of cottoned on to the narcissistic, what I term, okay, undiagnosed, I'm not qualified to say this, but I started listening to stuff. And finally, I started listening to my own inner voice that was telling me, that's kind of not what he says there. That's not true. That action's not right. Well, you know, where all the things, all the red flags, where things don't line up, and you suppress them and suppress them. And so I was suppressing them, going, no, I'll let it go, let it go, let it go. It doesn't matter. I've got enough love to make all of this fine. I'm going to have the dream. It's all going to be good. And then it was like, I started to realize, actually, I can't do it anymore. I'm in total trauma. I'm in absolute agony. I am not safe. I'm being slowly picked apart with this abuse, and I'm not myself anymore. And I started to check in with the narcissistic personality disorder, and all the boxes ticked. And I went through a phase of a couple of months watching all these videos, and I was watching Richard Grannon, which he's incredibly intelligent and articulate, and the way he puts it, I just love it. It's very, very deep and succinct. So I was watching him and a whole bunch of other people, and I was like getting that validation. Oh my God, that's the sign. Check, he's doing this, 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 this. But that made me reflect as well. I had to process my own trauma and shock of hearing that truth. But it was that truth that really set me free, because then I could go, okay, and what in me attracted this? And maybe everybody doesn't do that. And maybe that sounds like a really heady analytical thing, but I didn't do it in that way. I did it in my own kind of way. And I discovered the parts of myself where I had not loved me, where I had gaslit myself, where I had lied to myself, where I had done everything that he was doing to me to myself. I don't know if that makes sense. And it's not obvious, it's not conscious, it's a deeper thing. And anyway, so I was able to go in and kind of heal my own weakness, if you like, the weaker part of me that wanted him to fill the gap. and protect me. I filled that space. And when I filled all my own space inside of me, where I was codependent on him, right? That was a big admission. I'm codependent. And I'm like, no, I'm this powerful, independent woman. I was codependent. I didn't realize. So where I actually owned all of my own dark stuff, my own shadow, my own weakness, my own, all those stuff you don't want to own. It was like our separation from being like this in this locked infinity of entanglement, just untangled.
Yeah.
And that was it, done. And it was brilliant because it was like spirit just went, time to leave. And I was like, okay, how am I going to do that? Really? I don't want to leave. I'm in my dream home. I'm living, and it all just happened. And I was completely looked after. I, kind of cosmically, spiritually, if you like, practically as well. Lots of help and support. Miracle things started happening. It was like things that you just go, no, how did that happen? That doesn't happen. It did happen. Like, you just think, I don't know how I'm going to be okay. I don't know how I'm going to have this, this, and this. And it all just happened. And I honestly, I have never been happier. I'm having the best time ever. Yeah. So it's worth it. It's hard. But the truth sets you free. It's worth it.
Can I ask you something then? So I've been presencing, thank you for sharing that. It's amazing. It's really interesting what you were saying, because as you were speaking, I was thinking about what I'm teaching my clients about stepping out of the drama triangle and into the Shiro's journey.
Yeah.
And you talking about like what triggered for me there, would you say, was like, I could see you kind of playing the role of the rescuer.
Oh, very much.
And then, and I mean, and the one example I always give of the drama triangle is the example I think you just described, which is where the woman is the rescuer. She wants to save the man. She thinks it's going to be her, that he's going to change for her because this is the relationship. And then he doesn't change. And then the woman goes into why isn't he changing? He said he would. I was supposed to be everything for him and he doesn't change. And then the woman can often go into the persecutor, the last role, so into victim consciousness when he doesn't do what she wants or wanted, he doesn't change, and then into persecutor saying, actually, it's all your fault and doing the blame, giving blame. And then you're in the drama triangle, right? So I could kind of hear.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Kind of hear that. Is that where it was at? Okay, great. So not great. It wasn't great that you're in that, but it's great that you've just shown that can easily happen. But what you then described is something absolutely fascinating. What you're then describing is you taking responsibility for your part in it. Now, interestingly, you've just presenced it in a very different way. But what I say to my women, and what I'm trying to teach my women, is when you step out and witness, acknowledge, and notice the drama triangle without judgment, you are then able to take responsibility to then go on the initiation of the goddess, and the initiation of separation, and then return. And you are kind of, to me, the shining example of that whole journey. Like, you are literally sitting here, sort of having gone through that, and have, does that make sense to you? I kind of can see that.
I totally take that. That's right. Totally.
So you're like the ultimate, example of how you can do that. You can move out of the drama triangle and into the Shiro's journey, and it can feel immensely powerful and empowering and enriching to do that. And would you say, like, that you're not at the end of your journey, that you are still on those initiations, but you are returning to self right now, and that you are coming back into your own right now, and that what's going to happen now to you is those wings behind you are going to be even bigger, because you're actually going to be stepping out on your own, which you are, without the need of this entanglement, and that you are now going to truly step into that power. I just feel it really strongly. It's like your whole story is my container that I'm trying to teach other women to do. So I don't know, that's what I'm feeling. How about you?
I would say I'm in that place already.
Yeah.
I am massively in that place already.
What place is that? What place is that? When you say that place already?
I honestly, because I was already happy. I've been doing this work a long time, right? A lot of love and forgiveness. And so, you know, and I'd manifested my dream reality, but my Achilles heel has always been my relationships with my intimate male partners, because I'm totally like heterosexual, so I choose men. And but money was a close second, but men was the biggest one. And I kind of thought that once I sorted out my man thing, my money thing would work. And then, you know, and actually what you said, if you asked my ex, he thought he was rescuing me.
Right.
He doesn't see it as I was rescuing him at all. And actually, I was kind of dependent on him in a really subconscious level, because consciously I'm like, no, I do this myself. I'm a strong, powerful, independent woman. But really, I so wanted him to take care of me and look after me and get me out of having to be on this, you know, masculine energy of working and hustling and doing. I just had enough. I was done. I wanted to be a princess in my castle, looked after, with the dream lifestyle, with the swimming pool, with the villa. And I had that. I manifested it. And I was like, I'm winning. I was living my best life. But the price was the toxicity, because that was the part I hadn't cleared, right? And it was like, okay, so when I did that, and it was a dark, you know, it was a hefty journey. I mean, when I go deep in myself, I go deep and dark. And anyway, I won't talk about that here, but, and it was like, I will get every bit of root and release it out of my mind, body, spirit, soul to be completely free. That I will do a thorough job on that, right? I don't want any little entrails left. I don't want anything left. I want a thorough gardening job, right? Getting all the roots of that victim, whatever, codependency, narcissist, the whole thing to come out. So I feel like I did a fantastic job, and I had the confirmation. I felt it on every single level: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, my soul. It was like, I am not in that paradigm. It's not like, oh, I've still got a bit more of that pattern to do. I am not even in the same paradigm, let alone in the same room. It was the end of a huge book, done, dusted. And I have so much gratitude. I have nothing but love for my ex. I still love him unconditionally, always will, forever and ever. And I love myself, right? So now money is just like, it's just like this. I live in the most wonderful place. I just showed you out the window. I'm in my own place. I'm just like happy as anything. I feel incredible. I'm coming up to 50 in a few months. I feel better than I've ever felt in my entire life, more in my own power, in my base center, right? I'm in my body, owning this space and receiving like a Lakshmi goddess. I'm just like receiving like a Lakshmi goddess and then fountaining it back out. And I literally was like, everything is just, the opportunities are just coming, and I'm totally in that feminine energy where I don't have to go out and hustle for anything. It just comes. And I'm not going to reveal anything, but the love is just like, I'm just surrounded by love constantly. Everything that comes into my life is a reflection of that inner goddess of me. It's just the absolute love. It's the divine feminine that's just coming through.
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
So it's worth it. Do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think that's a beautiful way to maybe sort of summarize and end this kind of beautiful conversation, in that, you know, that witness, I witness you having done the journey. I do feel that we are always on a journey, but each this chapter of that journey, and it's so beautiful to see how you have pulled yourself away and analyzed and worked on and, you know, done all that you had to do to now be in that space that you can completely own. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I personally look forward to seeing, you know, what's next for you and what's next for all of us when we, you know, start to release and look at who we are and take responsibility. I think what we talked about today is taking responsibility for who we are, and responding rather than reacting to situations, and saying, I no longer want to be a part of that drama. This is where I want to be. I want the initiation into the goddess. I want to become the woman that I truly am meant to be in my soul essence. And
absolutely
amazing.
And also, you know, and you don't get there alone. I had help. I had a sister circle that I leaned into and have held and supported me. And I wouldn't have been able to do it alone. None of us can do it alone. We're not meant to, right? So actually being in a safe space is super, super crucial. So I would definitely recommend everybody do that. And yes, the learning doesn't stop, because life is infinite, love is infinite, growth is infinite. But it's so, yeah, you know, it's the rising of the divine feminine. That's how I see it right now. It's like divine feminine rises, the masculines catch up. It's just the way it works. The girls grow first, the boys follow, or the masculine and the feminine, whichever, you know, way. And I just recommend all your ladies, or your women that get drawn to you, listen to that, because it's a divine reason. There's a like vibration. They're here for a divine reason, not by accident, right? And to listen to that inner calling within themselves, inviting them to step out of their disempowerment, which responsibility is about taking your power, not carrying the burden. Actually, when you really take responsibility, you release the burden and instead transform that burden into your power, right? So taking responsibility has been distorted and twisted, that word, but it actually just means being in your true power. And I really encourage your ladies that come here, they're feeling this conversation and this energy of you, Claudia, like, yes, you're in the right place. Come and take your power back, sisters.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell all your other sisters that we're here to hold you. And yes, I do hold a sacred space, a sacred container. We meet in person, online, new moon, full moon. And yeah, that's the kind of creation that I've held. And the other part of the piece of my structure is to invite beautiful people like you in, to give that additional seeing, that additional witnessing, and additional help for my clients to be able to see that there is possibility, and there is other ways to do things other than just what I hold and I presence. And I really, really appreciate you being here today and sharing your story with my lovely ladies, goddesses. So thank you so much, Tara. So much love, and hopefully we will see you again very soon. Thank you, Tara.